Edo, emwe na mayoki koba. Nada ya si mama. Umayo kwete so kwita ni esike. Nyoye mwe ya kwita Edo. Umayo kwete so kwita ni esike. Nyoye mwe ya kwita Edo. Iya sike ne kono baba. Owo ya mwe aja simi wowo. Mwe na mayoki poba. Emani ya sike ya kwita.
Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much. Can we sit?
Well, so it's a pleasure to be in Edo State, in Benin City. We arrived yesterday to this state, and we can already feel some changes in the air. In this context, it will be interesting to find out what new energies.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for the trip. Yes, certainly quite a lot is changing in Nigeria. As you're aware, this is a large country with almost 200 million people, blessed with a lot of abundant resources. But like every country, we're going through our own challenges and difficulties. We had a civil war, and we found oil, and everything changed. So oil essentially defined our lives and our development trajectory over the last 40 years. But with the price of oil in decline today, it means therefore that we have to restructure, we have to think, do things differently. But that itself is now beginning to help us derive new energies, new perspectives as to what is possible. Nigeria has always been great. Nigeria is beyond oil. And so what you see is people today who are looking out for new opportunities in the context of the recession we find ourselves. Ordinarily, you'll have expected people to be depressed and happy, but people see new opportunities, new challenges. And for us as a government, we see a new vista, a new horizon, where even government itself needs to now think differently and do things differently for the benefit of its people.
Yeah. In the context of time available, because we were voted in for a mandate of 4 years, do you think some of these things are achievable given the conditions on the ground right now and the resources you have to work with?
I think the important thing is to start. You know, no country was built in a day. First things, you have to set out a clear path, a clear direction for your people and begin to mobilize the resources. Yes, there's a tendency to be in a hurry, to want to do everything now, but you know that you just don't get born and become an adult or in a day. It takes time. But what we have done in the last 10 months since we've gotten is to very quickly hit the ground running, be very clear as to what the priorities are and what are fine. First, infrastructure. Our people need to get around. We had to quickly fix the roads before the rains. begin to define new opportunities, particularly in the areas of agriculture, begin to conscientize the people, make them conscious of the changes and the new opportunities in the environment. And so across the spectrum, we had workshops and meetings and consensus building sessions to say, what is important for us? We are moving into a knowledge world. Education is key. Education is critical. How do we reform our education system? Where do we start? Where do we commit our resources and time to? Those are the sort of things we've done. And I believe that with the progress we've made in the last 10 months, after 4 years, we would have set a very clear trajectory where we should be going as Edo people. And with time, I'm sure we'll get there.
Your Excellency, sir, may I know your vision for Edo State in, shall we say, 8 to 10 years?
Well, for us, today Edo is about 5th in terms of GDP ranking in Nigeria. We expect in 10 years we'll be number 2 or number 3. We expect we'll have the best educational system in this country. We're strengthening our basic education system, so we'll produce the best sort of trained human citizens in this country. We expect that we'll be an industrial hub because of our unique location as a state. We're right there in the middle of the country, blessed with a lot of infrastructural connections, blessed with very good land, blessed with gas, onshore gas, mineral resources. If we're able to put all of this together in an orderly manner create an environment that is secure, that is safe, but people believe in property rights. We believe that within the next 10 years, clearly, Edo should be number 1.
In terms of property rights, the question of deeds, how is the state handling it?
Yeah, what we've done is one of the first things we did was to get a company that has GIS capability, Geographical Information System capabilities, to fly over. As we speak today, we have data, aerial data, or geospatial data, covering 2,000 kilometers around Benin City. We expect to extend that across the state in the next 6 months. And that means flying over the state, we have enough data, geographical information, to see very clearly in the minutest detail, the land space. What we will then do with that data is now have what we call a geographical information system that will now produce deeds, will now have a proper register, so that when you buy property, when you buy a piece of land, it's properly registered. So my expectation is that in the next 24 months, sitting down in Luxembourg, you can go and do a search and find out, who owns what you're buying or who owns the property. We expect to register all properties in Edo State within the next 4 years.
Excellency, sir, can we take you up on that? Because our associates in Luxembourg and the Benelux countries in general, they were specific in their demand to know the situation on this. We also have the intention of hosting a Edo Business Opportunity Fair in several capital cities there. And if we don't have a clear vision of when this will be ready, we will not start with this our intention.
Well, we've started. Yeah. The laws are being put in place. A bill will go to the House of Assembly next week, essentially legislating what we call the Edo Geographical Information System. We already have plans and maps. I can show you some of the plans that have been produced from the flyover of Edo State. And the office has been set up, people have been hired, so work has started.
You mentioned infrastructure. Talk to us about Gelile Port and, with timelines. What do we expect?
With Gelile Port, as you know, that's a historical port. It's one of the oldest ports in this part of the world. That's how the Portuguese traders came into Benin Empire in historical times. So it still is there. It hasn't moved. So what the plan is to work with the other agencies of government, particularly the federal government, the Nigerian Ports Authority, to dredge the Benin River and then locate a port, a river port, in an area that is very rich in gas and in agricultural produce. The difference between Gilligili Port and any other port is that this has been it's been designed as a port that is meant to not just bring in things like containers and materials, but the whole idea is to use the available gas around that field for industrial production. So you can bring in raw materials, process, produce, and take into other parts of the country or other parts of the sub-region. What we've done, we've set up a committee, a team of experts headed by Engineer Gregorio, who used to be a director in NNPC, and a very competent professional, mostly Edo people, who've come up with a report, the first report, showing that this port will be viable and it is needed. The next phase is now to fund a technical feasibility study, which we hope should not take too long. And with that technical feasibility study, we should be able to go to the market and raise money to execute the project. So it's going to be a project that is being launched or pioneered by the Edo State government. We as a government want to enable things happen. Government, we don't know how to operate ports, we don't plan to operate ports. We as a government just know that the port is required and we'll make the resources available to make it happen.
We really look forward to this port coming into operation.
We look forward to it too, because
yes.
If we get it right, it will change the face of Nigeria.
Yeah. With regards to the issue of security in the Gulf of Guinea, how?
The good thing is that with this port is going to be on the Benin River, so it's fairly well secure. That channel is fairly well secure. The challenge you have is actually, on the Atlantic,
Yes.
and I think that has been handled by both the Nigerian authorities and Interpol and international organizations. So it should not radically affect the movement of goods on our channel.
I want us to talk about youth.
Yes.
The youth. We have the problem of kidnapping, armed robbery, and person trafficking. And the people involved are young people. What are you doing for the young people? And as a follow-up, Edo used to produce world beaters in sports. Not anymore. It's a tough for the youth. What are you doing?
Okay, your question has several dimensions.
Yes.
Okay, let's look at them in the various strands. First, there is an immediate problem we have, a crisis. You have almost 2 generations of kids who are out there not without much to do, without very strong educational credentials, and so they are very susceptible to be misled into trafficking and a lot of other vices. That is a problem. What do we do, or what are we doing as a government? First, we're engaging them. We are, trying to, advocate, create advocacy, to try and ensure that we recover as many of them as we can. We've taken a very strong stance against trafficking. We have our own domestic task force on human trafficking. This is in addition to the federal task force. We're domesticating the laws against trafficking in Edo State. So we don't have to wait to prosecute you under federal laws. We'll first prosecute you with our local laws to just send the message that trafficking is bad. It's beyond trafficking now. It's actually human slavery. And while you're doing that on one hand, you're encouraging and creating opportunities for them on the other hand. Today we're going to do a groundbreaking at 1 o'clock of the Benin Technical College. We're rebuilding that school. and we expect it to be a center of excellence in technical and vocational training, which it used to be. At every point in time, we should be able to train between 2,000 and 4,000 young men and women in a whole range of technical areas, from technology to construction and to mining. Whatever opportunities we find in the marketplace, we're training them for those opportunities. So, try and dissuade them from being trafficked and try and begin to provide opportunities for them. We have a lot of we're revamping our vocational training colleges across the state, looking at everybody who is training somebody for work. We're trying to understand the curriculum and the standards so that we can put a lot of them to work, give them skills so that they can find useful work. Yes, we're looking at the area of sports. We're investing in sports, first ensuring that our club sides, particularly football that is very popular, we're building mini stadia in schools, encouraging, schools in the local government area where they have land to now do, it does not have to be very sophisticated, but at least playgrounds, and then ensuring that we're strengthening the school, the school where we train physical education teachers, so that most schools now have physical education instructors, and increased sport participation at the school level, because that is where you get them. But also creating facilities so that young people can go and exercise themselves and take interest in sports. At the organizational level, we've now taken out sports from the bureaucracy to create a sports commission. So where only people who understand sports, not just sports as a social service, but sports as a business, as it's done everywhere else. And they're currently working a team under the supervision of the Deputy Governor, and I'm hoping that before the end of the year we'll have a commission properly set up, the sporting association strong, so that they can begin to mobilize resources to strengthen our participation in games. So those are some of the things we're doing for youths in the short term. But in the medium to long term, we now need to address the real problem, which is strengthening the educational system, ensuring that the curriculum, particularly at the basic level, is strong, so that these children are taught with technology, they can have, they're knowledgeable, they can spell properly, they can speak properly, they can write properly, they can do their sums properly, and that in itself just helps imbue self-confidence in them, and also opens their vista and their opportunities for life. And that the tendency, so that in another 5 to 10 years, we're not likely to continue to have this state of hopelessness where kids leave school and you ask them, what do you want to do? They say anything. Because their minds have not been properly trained and structured. So that is what we intend to do in the longer term. But ultimately, you have to organize the economy of the society to be more productive so that it can absorb people to work. That's the ultimate. And with the restructuring that is going on in Nigeria today, we believe that we are on the track. The problem we had was the oil economy, which was very narrow. A few people would just go and drill for oil, produce money, and we thought we were a rich country. But today, if we have to be economically viable, we have, for instance, to produce a lot of the food we require. That requires a lot more people participating. We have to do a lot more mining, a lot more construction. And that way we'll be able to engage people and grow our economy.
Your Excellency, sir, the last time we were here, we had the opportunity of visiting some of the provinces. And the situation looks quite hopeless. We see quite a lot of Edo State people there as migrants, legal and illegal. And there's quite some distinction between the few ones who are resident there legally because they can integrate. They are equipped to integrate, but the vast majority are not so equipped. And from investigation, we can tell that they come from the provinces. So there seems to be a lot of some kind of dislocation in the social system in the cities outside Benin City. I don't know what it will take to light up the state, but I know it will take a longer time to light up the provinces. It seems that the administrative infrastructure in place in those places are not efficient. They are quite weak. The municipalities, the local councils. How do you intend to all that from the main city?
Thank you. We have started. I can assure you that we have started. Very good progress. I, as governor, am in charge. Now I take direct responsibility and support of the local government administrations. So I meet with the local government administrators every month to review what they're doing, review their policies, their strategies, and ensure that it keys into what the state is doing and what the federal. Yes, like you said, there was a dislocation in the past, and that dislocation was partly as a result of the type of economy we're running, where as long as we produced oil, it didn't matter. Everybody just went to the center at the end of the month to collect what they could get from the federal. They didn't realize that you have to produce from the base. You know, in Europe, everything happens at the local municipal level. The good thing is that with the restructuring of the economy which we are witnessing today, a lot is now beginning to happen at the local level, particularly in the area of agriculture and mining, because that is where the activities exist. So our role as government is first to ensure security, stability, provide social services. One of the things, projects we are working on in Edo State today, and you'll find it very interesting. Before 1973, there were very few expressways in Nigeria. Most roads that were constructed in colonial times passed through communities. But with oil boom, we now began to build expressway to bypass community, which bypassed many communities. So if you wanted progress in the community, you have to move your own village to the road. So that was where the dislocation started. So what we are doing now is helping re-establish those infrastructure that connected communities, so that if you went to go and farm, you could, your farm wasn't far from a particular community where you could go and reside or have a home. We also, ensuring that we provide social services, primary healthcare center, strengthening the primary school systems in the localities and in the local governments. And we have an advantage today. Today you can have cheap distributed power. You don't have to wait for electricity from the grid. With alternative sources of energy like solar, like wind, you can, have electricity. You can power your dispensaries or primary healthcare centers. You can power your primary schools. You can have a decent social life in the rural area. Those are the things we're working on, and we are harnessing opportunities to ensure that.
Your Excellency, sir, Edo State has quite a sizable population in the diaspora. A potent force, if you ask me. I don't know if you are going to, or if you have established an office of Edo in diaspora, or if you're considering such, and if there are incentives for them to come back home here and invest.
Okay, we have a ministry, for the first time, we now have a ministry for diaspora affairs. So administratively, we have recognized that it's a potent force, and we are organized internally to be able to respond to the diaspora population we have. I used to be in the diaspora, so I have a sense of what the issues will be. Because when you live outside, you live in fairly organized societies, and there's there's certain expectations you have. What is it that those in the diaspora want to do at home? They want to invest. They want to hopefully come back here at some point in time. So for them to be able to come back and be integrated, this place needs to be organized and look somewhat like where they are now. And therefore, those are the things we'll be talking about and trying to do. First, we have to plan our cities so that they are orderly. You can have maps. You have to make them secure. If there's an incident, you can pick up a phone and call either a policeman or a police van down the road, you know. Those are things we are used to. If there is an emergency, you can call an ambulance service to take you. You know, the hospitals work, you know, you have community hospitals that you can get to if you have, you know, not too serious ailments, and you have good referral centers or tertiary hospitals that can treat you. So those things at the base need to be in place because those are what you're used to. In terms of investment, to build those things, you need capital, and that's where we feel like they can come in. But you've got to organize things in the way they understand it. Take housing. If you plan in an area, you plan in a city, you've designed, you want to if people are not used to, how many people abroad go and build homes? They just buy. So you have to have a system that encourages people to invest in properties, design, develop properties with very clear titles, with clear services where they can. So it's easier for you to say, look, I want to buy a property in the area is zoned. You can go online, you can check titles, you can check, and then decide and determine how to now begin to pay and send money directly into an account. Rather than in the past, you want property, you have to go and look for land, begin to look for somebody to build, and they'll send you pictures of what doesn't exist. And, you know, so we are restructuring all of those so that it's easy for you to invest in real estate. We're also looking at economic opportunities. Take agriculture, for instance. I don't expect you, because there's an agricultural opportunity, I don't expect you to come here and essentially own the tractors and do all of that yourself. For instance, we have a scheme where we have a big off-taker. So you have a big company that's into oil, right? And we say to them, give 25% of your farm you require. Let us break them into investment parcels, 10 hectares each. We'll have people who will come and invest in them. They will hire people, they will produce. And so rather than you buying a house, for instance, you can decide to buy a lot, a 10-hectare oil palm lot, right? After 3 years, it gives you a certain return for 20 years. It's a win-win for everybody. So that's participating in agriculture. And, you know, so there's several schemes. But you've got to organize, you know, society in a certain way, have the basics, and begin to build on them. One of the critical and minimum, what I would call the irreducible minimum, is law and order. That's why we've been very strict on law and order. People just cannot be unruly and decide to behave the way they like, you know. So if you heard, we have been admonishing the young men who used to tout, you know, leave the streets. We're trying to find work for them. We're trying to reorientate them, give them a new lease of life, so that we are attractive for investment, so that people who want to invest find Edo as a home. They feel very comfortable. They enjoy the hospitality, and they want to do business here.
Yes. So on the issue of tourism development,
I don't know what your administration is thinking about it.
I know the time for government involvement in the building past, but perhaps in your policy, the design
To attract
investors in tourism to build chains of hotel facilities, or so that people can come and expect some kind of standard.
Yes, it is evolving. We are fortunate that we are a natural tourist catchment zone. Because just by our location, the state, you cannot go from the east to the west of this country or to the south without going through Edo State. So, particularly domestic tourists, this is a whole, people have to go through here. So the issue is, how do you create events, how do you create facilities for people to stop and enjoy what exists? There are, Benin City and Edo State is replete with a lot of hotels and hospitality places. What we need to do and what our plan is to just upgrade, help improve the standards, improve the management. But more importantly, for government to improve the infrastructure. Rarely will people just say, oh, I want to, yes, people will come in and say, we just want to come and, we read about the moats, these ancient moats, we want to come and see what it's like. We watched the coronation of the Oba, which was, a lot of splendor, we want to come and see. So we're building this infrastructure around it, particularly the historical areas. So when people come in, you can walk around, it's going to, we're going to document these monuments. We are refurbishing our museum. There's an exhibit from the Smithsonian that's going to open up next week. And so we're beginning to also create that consciousness that there's a lot of arts, there's a lot of culture, there's ecotourism, there's business tourism, then medical tourism, and maybe academic tourism that exists here, and that the environment for these to thrive, for you to come and see, exists. So that is part of it. That is the plan. The plan is government build infrastructure. If people come, they have roads for the investors who want to build hotels. You have set the standards for them. You give them the information so that they can understand the feasibility of what they're getting into, and then also make sure that when people come, they feel safe, and the places they want to visit are all properly organized and documented.
Yes. And sir, if it would state to go a step further, of representing in terms of dissemination of information on tourism events, what exists, etc., for people who've perhaps never come here, that leaving it for the embassies that might not have the capacity to
present it to the public.
You don't know, using ICT solutions.
I think this is for us. One mistake we've always made is to go and be talking and making the noise before we actually do what we're supposed to do. As a government, we want to organize ourselves. We want to make sure that we create things first, so that when we are talking about something on an issue or a matter, we are just not making empty promises or noises. You come in and you see yourself. In the next 24 months, we'll have solid plans tested, and we can show you we've done this, right? And let us grow from that. So as a government, we do not feel the right thing is to, yes, there's a need, there's a demand, but let's step back, let's plan, let's think, let's understand what we want to do properly, and let's resource ourselves to do it properly before we go and make the noises about it.
That's nice. Your Excellency, I must thank you for the time you've given to us to receive us in your office and to talk about these things. We promise to take it back to our people out there, and we hope to come again finally when everything is ready, so that we'll come out with our megaphones and vuvuzelas down there and say, okay, action.
We thank you very much. We want to assure you that we're doing a lot of work, and we will come out and market ourselves also with you once we are convinced that we have packaged things that can be accepted internationally. I want to thank you once again. This is Benin City. This map, this is our quadrangles where we have flown over, right? Over the entire city. As we speak, we have a map like this where from you can see this is just not to show you that this is a 10 centimeter aerial photography done in February 2017. This is the entire 2,000 square, 2,000. What this says is that you see each of this is like a look. You can now go further in and look at a particular thing. For instance, this is 293, right? Section 293. 293, right? That's like the city center. And you can shoot. Good. Okay, and that's the city center, for instance, Ring Road. So, what this says is that with this kind of data, you now put them into, systems. There are all sorts of technologies that are available. We can aerially now do your surveys and register each property in the city and give you titles, such that you can see a map like this, right? A bit of blown map, right? This is 293, a section of that. This is the ring road, right? You can actually see every property. You can see the beacons. This is the museum, right?
Yes.
This is part of. This is part of our market.
Yes.
Right? You can see very clear details of. So it's easy to register and document them. So you can actually go online yourself.
Okay.
And if you want to buy a piece of property, you do it for you. You just go and check.
Yes.
You can actually produce, like we've done here. You can see. This is the GRA here. You can see. Do you see the fences?
Yes.
This is all from data obtained here. So I don't have to wait. All of this is going to be registered and digitized. So if you want to buy land, you just go into the registry, check coordinates, and it pops up and it will tell you who owns it, when it was last transferred, just like you do everywhere else.
Impressive. It's impressive.
Very impressive.
So there's a lot of
Edo,